But first, an hours-long standoff between a group of militants and Russian police in Russia's restive North Caucasus Republic of Dagestan.